Hi, everybody, and welcome. Very pleased to have you here this afternoon. As Dean of the Library, I just wanted to mention that outreach programs like today's author talk they're important opportunities for students, staff, the community to get to meet contemporary writers and celebrate their connections to southern New Mexico and also to the university. And that's why I'm extremely pleased and especially proud that we have today Richard Leza, who is a graduate and devoted supporter of New Mexico State University with us. He's also an active supporter of the University Library. Richard will talk to us today about his new book, Leza's Memoirs, Beating the Odds. He's a notable venture capitalist, an entrepreneur with a remarkable story, perseverance and accomplishment. Born in Laredo, Texas, he grew up in Placitas, one of the colonias of Hatch, New Mexico, and spent his summers working in the fields. He went on to graduate at the top of his class here at New Mexico State University in 1973 with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I was particularly gratified that Richard mentioned studying in the peaceful library at NMSU in his memoirs, and that was Branstad Library. Yeah. He also earned a Master of Business Administration from Stanford Graduate School of Business in 1978 and was at the top 10% of his class. And after working with several startup companies in California, he ultimately became a successful venture capitalist. While he's had a career marked with significant accomplishments, he's also had many challenges to overcome, including discrimination. Over the years, Richard and his wife Cynthia have kept a close connection with NMSU. So when he let me know about publishing his memoirs, it seemed like a great opportunity to showcase his work here at the library. After his remarks, Richard will be available for questions and to sign copies of his book, which will be available for purchase. He's graciously agreed to donate the proceeds from book sales today to the library. So please join me in welcoming Richard Leza, author of Leza's Memoirs, Beating the Odds.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm going to talk today about chapter 6 in my book. And it's basically about, you just have to believe in yourself. And you can tell by reading the stories that when the odds are against you and if you keep trying, you're going to succeed. So chapter 6, it deals with, and I titled the thing, Entrepreneurial Fire. And the reason I called it that is because when I was graduating from the Stanford Business School, everybody was going to management consulting firms, investment banking, and they all were having a very big salary. And what I wanted to do was, I wanted to build things. That was my engineering background. So I said, I'm going to go find a company where I can use my engineering and my MBA. So I looked around, and most of my friends have already obtained a job by March of that year, March of 1978. Come July, I still had no job. I was still looking at it, and the Stanford administration had told us, if you don't move out by the end of July, we're going to throw you out because we need that space for a new MBA student. So about the third week of July, I was talking to some engineers that said that we were building this desktop printers, and I had not heard about it. Everybody was talking about having laptops and computers on the desk, but nobody was talking about having desktop printers. So I went to talk to the CEO, and the first thing he told me, and the last thing he told me was, we can't afford a Stanford MBA, you guys are too expensive. But in the meantime, when I was talking to him, I could hear the conversation of the CFO because all they had was cubicles. There was only, 6 engineers plus 2 executives, the CEO and the CFO. So there was 8 people there. And I said, I kept hearing this conversation. First, I hear only the side of the CFO. The first thing he says, well, we would like you to invest $1 million in this company because we need to take our products to manufacturing. And then silence, and then they would hear, and then he would say, yes, we have a problem with the cost of goods sold, but as soon as we can manufacture in high volume, we're not going to have that problem. And then silence. And then I can just imagine what the other guy is saying. And then the CFO said, well, thank you very much. If you're not going to invest, maybe you will reconsider. So I heard this, and then I'm driving home because this is, it was in their headquarters was in Hayward, which is almost like Fremont, California. So I'm driving over the Bay Area on the bridge, and I'm thinking about what the CFO was talking about. And I said, I need to work for that company because it's going to be a success. So as I was driving over, I remembered that I had read an article that said that pharmaceutical companies in Puerto Rico are sending their product to Puerto Rico, and they're just packaging the product in the box, and then they're shipping it back to the U.S. and they're paying no taxes, absolutely no taxes. So I went back to find the article, and I found it, and I called up the law firm that was mentioned there. And I said, I need to talk to this lawyer whose name is here. And I got a hold of Big Bertha, the ones that screens everybody and says, no, we're only talking to clients. So I said, oh my God, how am I going to get through and find out whether this is true or not? Because we were an electronic product. So I went home and I slept on it, and then I came back the next day and I said, okay, I got a new approach for Big Bertha. I called the same number, called her up, and she answered, and I said, I'm an MBA student studying the international law of producing a product in Puerto Rico, and I understand that there's no taxes, so I need to talk to a lawyer to find out some information because I need to put it in my report. She said, just a minute. And she connected me with the guy that was on the article. And I told him what I was doing, and I said, well, can I visit with you? Because, in the future, I might want to do that, and we can be one of your clients. And he says, oh yeah, come and see me next week. And so I flew down to see him, and I asked him a lot of questions. So I came back and I called the same company, but I didn't call the CEO, I called the CFO. And he answered the phone, and I said, I'm from Stanford and I was looking for a job with you guys and you guys turned me down. He says, yeah, I talked to the CEO about it. He says, well, I can tell you how to cut your cost of goods sold by 20% and cut your taxes by 0. And he says, you can't do that. I said, well, if you give me 30 minutes, I'll prove it to you, and if I am right, I get to be Director of International Operations. He said, come on down. So I went down to see him, and sure enough, I explained it and says, well, I don't believe it. He says, well, let's go down to see the attorney in Los Angeles, Central City, which I had just seen the week before. And he said, oh, okay. So I went there and I introduced myself like if I knew this guy for 50 years, And he explained it to him that says, yeah, the pharmaceutical companies can do that and reading the law. So electronic companies, you just ship all the parts, you assemble it there, you put it in a box that's been printed in San Juan, Puerto Rico, send it back to any place in the US or the international, and you won't pay any taxes on that. Wow, all of a sudden, we're reducing cost of goods sold by 30% because of the cheap labor there. and no taxes. So all of a sudden, the company ends up with a profit. So he says, okay, you're hired, but we're gonna have to talk about your salary. You know, you guys are too high. I said, okay, fine. I said, this is what I wanna do. This is what you're paying the Stanford MBA if it goes to a management consulting firm. I want 1/3 of salary, and I want 2/3 on equity. And he said, well, equity's not gonna cost me nothing. I said, yeah, it is, it's not. So I gave up. For those 2 years, I worked for them for 3 years before we went public. For those 2 years, it cost me $60,000 in salary. And when we went public, I made over $1 million. So it was a very good deal. That was my first hurdle. The second hurdle was going home and explaining to my wife that I had taken a salary which was 1/3 what every MBA was taking. And she says, you know, you were making that much as an engineer. Why do we come and waste our time 2 years at the Stanford MBA and you end up getting the same salary amount? I said, honey, you gotta understand this equity because we're gonna succeed. You know, I believe in this company and it's gonna work out. So we started with 8 individuals in 1970, at the end of 1978. And by June of 1981, we had 535 employees. And we had gone from 0 sales to having about 155 million in sales. Everybody wanted the desktop printer. We were 2 companies. We were not a Me Too. There was one company and another company that was building this idea, and it was called Diablo International. And we beat them out, so we were left with just being the one company, so everybody wanted to buy it. We finally sold all the patents and everything to HP. So every time you see a desktop printer, you know this is where it came from. We created the beginning. The only thing that was existing at the beginning were these big printers that were laser dot printers. They were huge. And when people would see this and you could put it on your desk, they were just amazed, you know. So going back to the second hurdle here, so I explained to my wife Cindy that, you know, this was going to be worth more money than the salary. And she says, yeah, but you know, your friend Stuart went for $85,000 and you're taking 33? That doesn't make any sense. No, I said it does make sense because it's gonna work out very, very good. And after that, I said, oh, this thing is so easy. I'm gonna do the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and the fifth one. And I did. The problem was that the second one went bankrupt. And then the third one was, instead of being a home run, which we call home runs when you get 100 to 1, we got a super home run, which was 1,000 to 1 on the third one. And we created laparoscopic surgery. Now, 95% of the appendicitis, for example, is made with 3 punctures, 2 instruments, 1 camera. And we started that industry in about 1981, 82. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. That's it. The rest of it, you have to read my book.